So one of the questions that I had going into this film was on whether this film will actually turn up to be hilarious or not. Stay tuned to know your answer. Hi guys, this is Farhad and welcome back to my channel Popcorn Reviews. If you're new to this channel, then please smash that subscribe button now. And as a video ritual, remember to like and comment on the video. Liking and commenting helps fuel the YouTube algorithm. And today the Malayalam film that we're going to be talking about is Bromance. Bromance, which is directed by Arun Jose, and it stars Mathew Thomas in the lead. It also has Arjun Ashokan. And if you have noticed the filmography of Arun Jose, I have watched actually a couple of his films earlier, like Joe and Joe or Journey of 18 Plus. These are the two films that I've watched, and one thing that is common in these films, which also, by the way, applies to Bromance, is that the plot is deliberately wafer thin. It doesn't have much meat to offer after a point, which basically means that the entire focus is on the character dynamics and the conflicts within the conflicts in the film that actually trigger the movement of the screenplay, so to say. And I think that is, one of the little issues that I had with Bromance, wherein it was over relying on the humor to take the story ahead. There wasn't much drama around it, to add as a cohesive unit to eventually take the story ahead. The humor here was eventually a hit and a miss, and that was a little bit of an issue, although I did feel that it's not half as bad as people are saying. I still enjoyed it up to a certain extent, but I wouldn't classify it as one of the best Malayalam films that I have seen this year. Now, coming to the story and screenplay, the tone, the Gen Z tone of the film, the Gen Z-ness of the film is actually laid out in its opening act itself, in which one of the characters, who happens to be a cop, he's, into a chase before stuttering on a flight of stairs, only for video and his antics to be captured and converted into a reel that eventually becomes viral. This lingo that is there, that is something that is laid out right at the beginning. On the helm of it, you are introduced to the protagonist, the Gen Z protagonist, which is played by Matthew Thomas rather, and Matthew Thomas, and his name is Binto. His brother's name is Shinto, he's Binto. It's almost like Ramesh Suresh in the parallel universe, you can say, if you remember that 5-star ad which is there. Now, anyway, coming back, the Gen Z-ness of him is very exuberant. I mean, there's no purpose in his life. You can just make out that his character is purposeless. He doesn't mind borrowing money from his elder brother. He doesn't mind even getting into some mild brawls, which almost, had a feeling of Thalumala, if you remember, that Thalumala feeling of a brawl that was there, that it almost gave you that feeling. But this is not that film. The conflict in the film happens when Bintu's elder brother, Shintu, which is played by Sham Mohan, he disappears randomly, and, it's in fact Shintu's colleague, Shabir, who actually comes and informs Bintu about his disappearance. And the entire screenplay is about how the group get to there are a few more characters that are added, and they get how do they get into discovering where Shintu is eventually. It's almost like a Hangover kind of a plot, you would say, where the mystery of the missing person, in this case the missing person, was actually the main center focus of the film, you can say, and the humor is surrounded by it. So the seriousness of the drama is eventually cut through by the frivolous nature of the drama, which is also to say that not all humor lands the way it should, especially when Bintu first visits the supposed ex-girlfriend of his brother, which is played by Mamta Nambiar. The humor that was there, it kind of felt a little forced, it didn't really land the way it should. But there's another character that enters. There's a hacker character that is there, which is played by Sangeet Pratap, and that character, adds infusive, comedic gags to the film. In fact, this character remains one of the highlights of the film, if I can say so, because he would like to believe, the character of Sangeet Pratap would like to believe that he is actually an ultra pro max kind of a hacker, but eventually he's not. It's in a hilarious scene that you see that he hacks into Shinto's device only to later realize that it is worn by Bintu, and that adds to the laughter. On the downside again, in the first hour, we are still in the first hour, so in the downside again, the events that link to the start of the film, of that cop character, was an interesting plot point, I would say, but it was a little stretched for me. The humor after a point dried out, and there wasn't enough payoff for me to invest in that, conflict within a conflict which was there. On the flip side, again, there's another character called Courier Babu, which is, played by Shahjahan, and that again was an interesting kind of a character. He's again a gangster, but he's anything but a gangster. He's hardly intimidating. He's really affable, and he eventually helps the gang to get to the point B of finding Shinto eventually. So this in a way is like a puzzle in which all the characters slowly get added, and it becomes like a group of misfits. It's almost like if this was an MCU film, a Marvel Cinematic Universe, you would call this a Thunderbolts. That's the film that is out this week as well, highly recommended by the way. But the Thunderbolts, this would have been a Marvel film, but this is not a Marvel film, this is still a Malayalam film, and so therefore the point A to point B is across two cities. So when the setting changes to Kurg and another character enters the fray, which is played by Bharat Bopanna. His character's name is Ashish. It's almost like a modern, you can say, spoof or a parody on Arjun Reddy, the character of Arjun Reddy, which is so infamously popular, you can say. That character acts, you would know that character acts as a nemesis at some point in the screenplay. But what the second half reminded me was one of those Priyadarshan comedies, where all the characters are under one roof, and that automatically creates chaos in a good way. When all the characters are together, there's madness, there's synergy in madness that is created, and something that I could feel in the second half as well, which was slightly better than the first half. Now, I was a little on the fence in which how the group got together to actually discover the eventual mystery around Shinto, but the final act more than makes up for it. Yes, one little gripe in that also is that it's a little stretched for my liking, and it just went on for a little too long. But the meta commentary that is there, including one track of a one-sided love of one of the characters out of nowhere, or the meta commentary that is there with the character of Aishwarya, which is played by Mamta Nambiar. Interestingly, it also resembles the antics of a superstar which is involved by another Aishwarya. No names here, but I think you know who I'm talking about. It's almost like a meta commentary that is created in the second hour, which actually adds to the madness in the drama. So the ending was, pretty good. I mean, I enjoyed the final act despite, it going on for a little longer, But overall, I felt that the humor was a bit of a hit and a miss for me. It doesn't always land, the way like some of the other films, Malayalam films that I watched, even in the comic space. This was a hit and a miss, but still I would say tending towards positive. It's still made for a fun experience overall, I would say, as far as the screenplay is concerned. Now, coming to the technical aspects, the dialogues, the music and the direction, I think the dialogues are packed with a lot of Gen Z lingos, and that is actually to your palate, whether you like it or not, that becomes then a subjective discussion. I did not really mind it because I'm pretty familiar, with the Gen Z lingo that is actually, going on. However, the humor element, again, the complaint that I had in the screenplay also applies to the dialogues. The humor doesn't always land as far as the lines are concerned. the time when it lands is when it almost goes into a slapstick mode or in a situation mode, so to say. But the lines in itself aren't very funny, which would add me chuckling in the purest sense, I would say. So it's almost like a mixed bag kind of a thing as far as the dialogues are concerned. I think the technical area where the prowess was missed was in the music and the BGM. The music and the BGM did not work for me. It didn't sit with me even tonally as far as the film is concerned. You know, it was largely forgettable, and it didn't really come together as far as the tonal aspect of the drama is concerned. You know, like how, if you remember in Tudurum, Jake's Bijoy's BGM actually elevated the drama. Here, it doesn't really elevate the drama in any way. The cinematography still is good, comprises of frames that add to the comic elements in the drama. I would still probably have liked, you know, the comedy to be almost like cross-cultural as well, given that there were two cities involved and both cities could have, you know, played an important character. But it's still, you know, it still makes for a good watch. Now, the editing here, I think at least 15 to 20 minutes could have easily been chopped off from the edit table. You know, this is a slightly longer film as far as the comedy is concerned. 2 hours 15 minutes is slightly longer as far as I'm concerned for comedy. If it was under 2 hours, it would have been a much tighter watch, much more impactful. Otherwise, the editing is okay. The scene to scene editing is fine. Director Arun D. Jose manages to leave a mark. I wouldn't completely disregard him, because this again was in his genre, you know, of minimalistic plot points, you know, almost like a wafer thin plot, and creating conflict within a conflict with the humor. Now, the humor, again, as I said, was a hit and a miss, but still, you know, the director keeps things together, you know, keeps things cohesive to at least make the film watchable to an extent. And I think that was a creditable achievement for this film as well, you know, because otherwise it would have probably been too scattered after a point. But at least because it was cohesive, the fun elements also came through in some scenes, and I think that was a plus for me as far as the direction is concerned. Now, coming to the performances, I felt the performances are also pretty good. I mean, they're pretty decent, I would say. Some of the standout performers are Sangeet Pratap and Shahjahan. I think they both were pretty crazy characters, and they really amped up the laughter in the film, the fun quotient in the film, you would say. Binu Pappu is again with his trademark mustache again, in a very different kind of a cop character from the one that he played in Tudurum. Of course, this film had released theatrically in Feb, so this was technically a prior film, as not Tudurum. Tudurum was a later one, but I think he still did a sincere job. You know, he still did a good job. Nambiar, you know, Mamta Nambiar, she has a good screen presence, and I think she did a good job as well. Shyam Mohan was almost again in the Premalu zone. In fact, you know, the events oddly would be probably like a succession to that of Premalu in a very odd way. If you know, if you watch the film, you know what I'm talking about. And I think he did a pretty good job. He was decent in the film as well. Arjun Ashokan was also having a blast. I think he was in his romancham kind of a fray to begin with, you know, but I think he just let loose, you know, in the second hour, and he actually brought the house down with the laughter as well. So I think he did a pretty solid job. Bharat Bopanna also, in his parody of Arjun Reddy, was amazing. I really liked him in the film as well. And of course, you know, Mathew Thomas, I think he's one promising young actor as far as the Malayalam film industry is concerned. Although I did feel that he did go a little overboard in a couple of scenes, you know, where he had to actually flare up, you know. I think those scenes he went a little overboard, and not in a good way, I would say. But otherwise, largely his performance was pretty decent. He did manage to hold things together after a point. All other actors, you know, they did a good job as well. So overall, what is the verdict? It's a mixed bag for me. Bromance is a mixed bag, but tending slightly towards the positive side, you know, slightly towards the positive side. I would say the humor was a hit and a miss. I would 100% agree with that argument. It was a hit and a miss. It did not always land, but it was still a fun watch. I mean, you can just put it on and watch it like a time pass watch, so to say. It's not by no means the best Malayalam film of the year by a country mile, I would say. But still, it adds some moments, you know, that makes for a fun experience, fun one time watch. I would say it's not great, it's not bad, it's somewhere in the middle for me. So that was the verdict, guys. If you know liking this video, remember to smash that like button, or you can also dislike the button. Any engagement helps fuel the YouTube algorithm. What fuels the YouTube algorithm further is also, you know, commenting on the video. You can comment on the video your thoughts. If you watched the film, did you like it, did you not like it, what was your theater going experience? I heard it did well, so let me know whether it did well box office or at the box office as well. You can share this video with your friends and family, ask them to subscribe to the channel. Let's grow this family together, you know. And thank you so much for the response that you gave me on, you know, such encouraging words on my review of Tudurum. My detailed review, by the way, of Bromance is also available on my site, Popcorn Reviews with a double S, and it's the link of which is in the description box below. Remember, you can listen to your review also. Now there's the additional listen option that is there on the site as well. You can also read the review in your language. The listen will be only in English language, but you can read it in the language of your choice, you know. And you can also follow me on different social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd. I do not end up making a video on everything that I watch, but I do write a lot. All information is present on my site and on my social media handles. I'll see you again soon with another video, probably Sunday. Till then, take care of yourselves, and thank you so much for your love and support. Cheers.